Hello, everybody, and welcome to Beyond BMR. And of course, I am your host, Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Joining me in Studio B, all the way from Missouri, the lovely Krista. Beyond BMR goes beyond the mysteries of the world. We take you on a deep dive surrounding all of these great phenomena, from Bigfoot to Dogman, UFOs to aliens, time travel, and the paranormal. How do all these things come full circle? Tonight, we've got a great show. I got the Cryptid Guru, Ronald Murphy, joining me, and also the lovely Anne Selene joining us. So we've got a show packed with a lot of awesome information with two fantastic guests who both have been on the show once or twice over the past year, and they are fan favorites. So glad to have them back. If this is your first time here, please subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube. Please subscribe to Texas Front Porch on YouTube. And please subscribe to the Blondes and the Booze Paranormal podcast on YouTube. If you like our content, want to help support what we do around here, the Super Chat is open. That's a great way to show us some love and appreciation. Thank you so much for that. Don't forget, if you want to become a BMR pirate, you can join. Join today. Why not? Got a fantastic show. You can find us on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, KPNL Radio, thanks to the lovely Anne Selene, who's one of my guests this evening. Thank you for that. And of course, check out our amazing about pages that tells us about what's going on. And what's going on is, like, we have a conference coming up, right? And I'm going to pull that up right quick for everybody. Once I can find it, I got so much to scroll up to. Here it is. June 7th and 8th, 2024, of course. The Alabama Bigfoot Conference at the Anderson Performing Arts Center. The host is Tex Wessons. Featured speakers Barton Nunnally, Daryl Denton, the Blondes and the Booze, Jason McLean, Greg Ogles, Martin Groves, yours truly, BMR. Tickets on sale $30 and $35 online, $35 at the door. On the 7th, we're doing a get-together, a meet and greet, which, I found out it's already booked. However, it's open to everybody. If you don't have a reservation, I don't think it matters. We'll get as many people crammed into wherever we're going as we can, because I like to be all cozy. I like to be shoulder to shoulder with everybody. How's that sound? So yeah, we got that going on. So put that on your calendars. I want to thank everybody who's bought my book, Bigfoot Michigan Represents True Cryptid Encounters. Book one, found on Amazon. The link is pinned at the top of the chat. The link is also on my Facebook page. It's on my YouTube channel. So please check that out. For those of you that bought it, when Amazon comes calling, please leave a review. That does help promote book sales. Book 2 is already in the works. That's going to come out, I think, I'm looking at spring, early summer. So I'll keep you posted on that. So thank you to everybody for that. One other last bit of news is, don't forget to subscribe to Texas Front Porch. He comes out Monday, 9 o'clock in the East. Tuesday, Beyond BMR, good old BMR right here, 9 o'clock in the East. Wednesdays, Inhumanoids with Barton Nunnally, live Wednesday, each and every Wednesday night. Barton comes on 9 o'clock, and you just go check out Barton. Thursday afternoon is Bigfoot Michigan Rob, brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob, 1 o'clock in the East. Then if the Blondes and Booze and the Paranormal podcast come on Thursday night, 9 o'clock in the East, that would be with Krista and Brandy. And if you need some more woo with the Booze, they're back on Friday. Same time, 9 o'clock in the East. Couple other shows. Sunday, Truth or Tinfoil. You can find that on Texas Front Porch and also on the Truth or Tinfoil YouTube channel, new channel created by Randy and Brandy. So they're doing a simulcast on that to help jumpstart them. It's 5 o'clock each Sunday. And Infamous Minds comes on right after that on Sunday at 6 in the East. That's with Tex and Diva talking true crime. I'm going to bring up Krista. I got to tell you, how you doing, Krista?
I'm good.
we were talking backstage, and that's a mouthful. We got the conference, and I do like to remind people of the book,
Mhm.
and then we've got these, friends of ours and all of our shows that we have, and
Right?
that we like to rightfully, give them a plug because they do the same for us. We do it for each other, and
Absolutely.
it's like, boy,
Absolutely.
it's like, I look at the clock and say we're 8 minutes into the show. We haven't even, brought up our guests or anything.
Yeah, I know, right? And I got to tell you, that conference, it's all my people going to be there. I'm excited.
You were telling me about a lot of the people that, what do they do? They made reservations already. They booked,
Well, we have a lot of people that
that's,
are in our chat that we've become
yeah,
friends with are
yeah,
going to be there, and just
that's,
hanging
yeah,
out with you guys. That's going to be
yeah.
great.
And I think that's like 30. Thank you, Maggie, for the super sticker. Great way to start the
Thank you,
show.
Maggie.
Yeah, and I'm excited now. How many people have RSVP'd for the dinner already?
I know that like they're sold out. However,
Yeah,
like you were saying, it's a room, I think,
yeah.
that Anita had rented at the restaurant. So if anybody else wants to come, they would be more than welcome to come. They just might not fit in the room with us.
Yeah, well,
But after we're going, and we'll announce as it gets closer where we're going to go after the dinner, because our fun don't end at dinner. I'm telling you.
no, wherever Bigfoot Mr. Rob goes, fun always follows. And I'm
Right.
sure I've never been with the Blondes and Booze in public.
Right.
You're in for a treat, and I'm sure I'm in for a treat with you guys because you guys
Yep.
look like you have a lot of fun. I already know Tex has a blast, and I know a lot of people in chat are fun
Yep.
people as well to hang out with. So that is gonna be
Yep.
a lot of fun.
And
of
Martin
course,
and Letitia, they're a blast. Martin Groves, all of them. They're all a good,
I
all
think
fun
it's
to
going
hang
to be
around.
a great time. And our audience, our people that watch us, I know a lot of those people, again, they all seem friendly and happy and just like they have a good
Yep.
time. So it's going to be a fantastic a turnout. And of course, at the same time, it's not all about fun. We'll talk, we have the great speakers talk about their
Yeah.
encounters and everything and their stories. So that's
Yep.
awesome.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you,
thanks.
DJ.
Thank you, DJ.
And Pancho. Thank you.
DJ Poncho already. Great way to
Yeah.
start it off with thank you to Maggie. Thank you to DJ Tyler Radio and Poncho
Mhm.
Zorch to kick this off with some awesome super stickers. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
And Pancho, I seen he had commented in chat to pray for him. He's going through a job change or something. So good deal.
Absolutely. Hey,
Yeah.
Joe Monk. Yep. Thanks for everyone for coming in, and we definitely will do that. Certainly most appreciated, Poncho.
Oh, look, Paranormal Among Us Paul said he'd love to go, still might. Well, you know what? You can always ride with me and BMR.
Yeah, we're driving down.
He's a St. Louis guy.
She's going to be. I'm going to be there a day early at your house, and like the following morning. So you're gonna have your fair share of BMR.
Yep.
And I even sent her a whole bunch of books today. I mailed them to her. Said, since I'm traveling with you, here's about 1,000 books. No, not quite that.
Well, my car's not that big. Just saying.
That'd be wishful thinking to sell 1,000 books. That'd be nice. That would be sweet. But so I sent you a handful.
Right. And then Saturday night, you are going to be on Paranormal Among Us, Paul's show, aren't you?
Yeah, Paranormal Paul. In fact, it's a big paranormal weekend. Because Thursday on Brunch with Bigfoot Rob, Paranormal Paul from Paranormal Among Us joins me this Thursday at 1 in the afternoon. And then that Saturday evening, I will be back on Paul's show. He's got a cool show. He just started it up. So show Paul some love. And
yep.
And we'll do that thing.
Yep.
And we've got the lovely Anne Selene backstage. Ronald Murphy just showed up. Fashionably late as always. Thanks, Ron. I'll give you a couple minutes, Ron. I'm going to bring up Ann first really quick so you can settle in, Ron. But here's one of my other guests. We have two guests tonight. We're going to be talking about a bunch of different things. And what I'm going to do is I'll just bring up Ann, then I'll bring up Ron. Hello, Ann.
Hey.
Hello. How are you guys?
We are good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I'm excited to be here.
Well, we're glad to have you. You know, I told Ann this before, Rob, and I'm going to run this by you.
Okay.
We do broadcast on her radio station. So in a roundabout way, she's kind of our boss.
I guess. I guess she is.
Well, you guys do amazing, and it's an honor to have you on KPNL, truly.
Well, thank you. We
And
appreciate you.
KPNL does have a lot of awesome shows, radio shows, podcasts. So many, I can't name them all. Anybody that follows along on Facebook, KPNL's on Facebook. Go check out Ann's radio page, because there's like 50, there's about 30, maybe 20, I don't know, Ann, 20, 30 podcasts on there.
Oh my gosh, it's honestly growing at a rapid rate. We have so many different shows on, and it's also different every day, and we have like special programming on Sundays, and so the best way would just go check it out on KPNL on Facebook. Would be the best place right now, and
yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. So thank you for that, Lady Ann. Go check out KPNL Radio, or tune in on your internet, and you can find it there as well. Yep. Now it looks like Mr. Murphy is settled in. He's giving me the thumbs up.
Hello.
Now wait a minute, right up. Well, hello, and we must have an imposter. This isn't the Ronald Murphy I know. There's no beard. There's no hat.
I know. I no hat. I shaved. So I was coming home yesterday, and people were passing me on the streets and giving me dollar bills because I think they thought that I was homeless. So I got home and I said, I got to do something with this beard. Because you know how Dave Scott, he always looks like he had his beard worked on right before he went on, right? And mine gets all scraggly and everything like that. I now have a Native American best friend. A bear follows me around. It just doesn't look kempt, So I decided I was going to shave it, but I couldn't find the shave guard. So I said, that's it. I'm taking the whole thing off. And now I look like a Simpsons character from the 1990s.
Oh, yeah. Well, I do gotta tell you, because I talked to Dave Scott. We're pretty good buddies, and I don't know if he's listening now at all. I don't know, but I'll let you have a little inside information around. He's got a professional. I don't know if the groomer is the right word, but a professional person that does his beard and hair up every day, an hour before showtime.
I bet he does have a groomsman. I can see that. I can see that happening. If I ever get to the Dave Scott stratosphere, I will have that as well, too. But I should have my beard back in some sort of order by the weekend.
Good deal.
You do look good. Lady Ann, of course, always looks good. Kristen
She always looks good. I've seen her first thing in the morning. I'm not telling tales out of school or anything like that. I see her first thing in the morning at conferences and things like that. And she always looks good. She always looks camera ready, as they say.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and of course, our beautiful audience, they always look good as well.
Yep.
There you go.
I'm telling you, we always say this, but we do have the best people in chat. We really do.
Yep, very good, very good. We got one of our best shows. I think we're gonna have. I can look kind of like I'm foreshadowing. I'm looking ahead. This show is be one of the best ones because, I think I want to talk about a lot of different things today. We do talk on this show. We talk about everything: cryptids, time travel, paranormal. We talk about ghosts. We talk about spirit beings, and Ron and Ann. I will try to pick a topic you both can comment on and discuss. And I'd like to start out with the Jinn, right? I want to talk about a little about the Jinn, elementals, fairies, their connection with cryptids. Because I have my own personal beliefs, and I know that you definitely have some, Ron, and I know that Ann has some ideas as well. And I just want to start by saying I believe that all these things that we talk about, again, the premise behind this show, beyond the BMR, is to go beyond just the everyday Bigfoot crossing the road, dogman follow me home with those red eyes. But what really constitutes the forest? What constitutes all these things coming to us? Is it folklore and mythology, or is there something to it?
Mm-hmm. Well, let me just say, you've hit the proverbial nail on the head there, because Ann and I have formed this relationship that we have by posing those exact same questions that you just proposed, right? So what are we dealing with, And we were so far beyond, I saw a dog man and I thought it was going to kill me, and we heard this vocalization. We know that strange things are going on out there in the woods. But like you said, exactly what is the wilderness? And I think as we look at these kind of paranormal phenomenon more and more closely, what we see there is this gray matter of the mind becoming a bit of that wilderness as well. And whenever we go into that kind of conundrum, that place where nightmares dwell and things lurk and all these shadowy figures, I think that is as important as doing field work in the actual woods, because I think a lot of this stuff does proceed from our minds.
I agree with that. I think that it's been an amazing journey working with Ron and diving into the mind and, manifestation, which is something that we had talked about. And, and then the projection, because I think that there's another layer to it where we come here, and this is just one of my thoughts, is that we come here and we're set to kind of experience certain things at certain times. And that kind of leads us down this path of healing and enlightenment.
Yeah.
That's interesting you say that too, because maybe for different reasons, I'm thinking a lot of times, a lot of us have had encounters in the woods with myself, a Bigfoot, right? And a lot of people, and I get a lot of stories from people on an encounter with a dog man or a Bigfoot, and they're shaken, they're stirred, much like I was. And you mentioned that, and do you think that in some way, shape, or form that if somebody comes across a traumatic encounter in the forest, do you think that some of these elementals, fairies perhaps, are there to kind of help guide you through that traumatic time while you're still in their universe?
Oh, yeah. No, I do believe that there is that relationship that it's interesting, because I've wondered that if we encounter something in the woods, so with my experience with what I maybe a Bigfoot, was it a shapeshifter that was able to read something within my energy or ancestral DNA? And so then it formed, and it was a certain way because I was supposed to reflect in a certain, so even if they are traumatic, was it something that was meant to heal me in the end? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I was just wondering, maybe they don't do it at the outset of the encounter where you might have been traumatized. Maybe not so much right then and there, but do they follow you home, or if you go back to that area, do you think that maybe they're with you? Or, like some people say, when you have a Bigfoot encounter, you're marked. Like whenever time you go in the woods, there's gonna be a Bigfoot around you. Do I believe that or not? I don't know. I've been told that. Perhaps. I've had one Bigfoot encounter since 2018. Been back in the woods many times since, never seen one since. I've seen more paranormal things in my entire life, from 6 years old till current day, 2024. But I think, from my knowledge, right, I've only seen the one. And as I always say, not even sure it was a Bigfoot. It could have been. I thought it was part paranormal as well. I always describe it as a demon when it did the metamorphosis. So,
right.
So for me, it's just as confusing as anybody. So, go ahead.
Well, yeah. I think that once we have an experience, we are awakened, right? Our vibration raises. And once we raise our vibration, right, then we're open to more things. And so I guess the answer would be yeah, then we are connected. Maybe not to that specific entity, but to that level of consciousness and energy.
I believe not only, like a Bigfoot encounter or a paranormal ghost encounter, or, even alien UFO, once you have an encounter, that opens you up for all of it, is my personal belief, so
yeah.
Who knows? Because that's kind of what's happened to me. I've had Bigfoot encounter or a ghost encounter all my life, and then here just last year I had my first Bigfoot encounter. So I don't
Oh,
think
yeah.
that's coincidence.
Yep. And
Yeah.
Rod, go ahead, jump in.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if like mark is the right word. How about if we use this term? How about if our vibrations now are synced up? So now that they're synced in that same kind of wavelength, you really can't go back anymore, right? Because as Ann said earlier, you're awakened to that other reality. But I think there's also this idea of a synchronicity involved as well. And that vibration has always been out there, right? That natural universal vibration is out there, and we've decided to step away from it. And every now and then we can become linked back up to it under the right conditions. And it's in those conditions that we, like our forefathers, and from the very beginning of time, have dealt with the paranormal. But whenever they saw it as part of the world around them, something that was part of nature, we are now separating it, right? So it's something that lies beyond us, and it scares us and it frightens us because we're no longer part of that world anymore.
Sure.
Beautifully put.
Yeah, it makes sense. Totally makes sense.
For a lot of people, even for myself, elementals, fairies, and I like to talk a little bit about the Jinn a little later, which I know is something totally different, or maybe it's not. I don't know. For people out there listening, what actually is an elemental? When I think elemental, I'm thinking a being of the forest, and the first thing that comes to my mind is like a gnome. And I was doing some reading, and there's a whole different variety of elementals. So in layman's terms, what really is an elemental? Anybody can answer that one.
You want to take that in? All right. So an elemental is simply, so how you have a periodic table with all these elements on there and everything. So let's just kind of break it down a little bit, because at one time, in a pre-scientific community, it was necessary to try to deal with the forces of nature to understand them. So this goes the whole way back to the idea of alchemy. And within the natural world, you have the elements. You have earth, you have fire, you have water, you have spirit. So in each of those domains, you have an intelligence which controls that domain. So this all comes from Paracelsus. He was the father of mineralogy, so he thought, maybe taking certain minerals can help the human body. So he described and even named the zinc. So if we all take zinc, we have Paracelsus to thank for that. But not only did he name zinc, but he also gave the word gnome its name. So, or the being the gnome its name. So he believed that in the earth, right, the intelligence which you're trying to operate with would be the gnome. That is the domain of this particular elemental. And then whenever you look at water, that water element was the undine, right? So sometimes personified as a mermaid. And then you have the sylphs in the air. Sometimes it can be broken down to the forest as well, too, where you have a sylvan there. For fire, it's salamander. So you have all these different personifications of a natural element in hopes that the human being could not so much control it, but negotiate with it. And that's the reason why we have the idea of the elementals. So fairies are basically manifestations of the elements around us. And this was also piggybacked on by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who wrote Sherlock Holmes, and Harry Houdini as well, too. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle believed that fairies are often displayed with wings, but they're not really wings. It's this kind of energy that they give off, and they're almost like a photosynthetic part of the natural world as well, too, where they take the sun and the energy of the sun and convert it to help gardens grow and plants grow. So they have a very beneficial nature as well, too. But remember now, this is the time of theosophy, right? This is the time of a time in British history when industrialization was moving in. They were trying to harken back to the old days. So if we would go back into the Middle Ages, you don't want to piss with fairies, right? You don't want to even mess with them because they're very ambiguous. You could make a horrible mistake and have hell rain down on you for the rest of your life. So for the most part, they believed that fairies, human beings have always believed there was something out there, right? In a very animistic culture, they believed that all of nature was imbued with some sort of intelligence, okay? So, hold on there, honey, hold on. I got my granddaughter in. So all of nature is imbued with a natural intelligence. But But yes, so as it moves on, and hold on here. See, this is what it looks like.
Oh, what a
Oh,
cutie.
Aw,
cutie.
That's my little fairy creature. Hold on a second. Hold on. All right. Now, as the mother comes up and rescues me. Okay, great. So, but yeah. Anyways, but fairies have always been with us, and even going back to the world of the shaman, it was these kind of natural elements that people were trying to negotiate with to try to find some sort of answers in this world.
Mhm.
Oh, but late. Oh, I know what I was going to say. This is advanced even further by the time of the Rosicrucians, which is kind of like right at the end of the Middle Ages, at the beginning of the Renaissance, and they believed that the only true love that a human being could find in this world is by finding a spouse in the fairy world. Yeah.
Really?
Oh wow, I didn't know that part.
I didn't
Yeah.
either.
So you can go. I'm thinking of an idea like a fairy match, where you can do like swipe left and swipe right. Huh?
Well, we might have to get an app together for that one and market
I think
that.
we might have to do math.
Right.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Whenever, I got into the paranormal, I was always the ghost person. And, I've always believed in Bigfoot and, things like that. However, when I started hearing about fairies, I'm like, it just doesn't sound right. I can't picture Tinkerbell or something out there in the forest, until I did a private case and I saw a troll. I saw it with my eyes. And I was like, this stuff is real, so for like the average person, to really understand and know that they do exist, what are your guys' thoughts on that? Like, I mean, how hard was it for you to come to grasp that there really are these elementals out there in the forest?
It's, I think that, gosh, this is for everything because, I've seen, well, I've experienced things from shadow entities and spirits to, I don't know if I'd call it a interdimensional being or alien or whatever. But I remember seeing it and you watch it walk, you see its shape, as clear as we can see each other right now.
Mhm.
And I still question myself, even though I know that I experienced it and everything. I still have a hard time wrapping my head around it, because there's so much information out there about, psychology and manifestation. And is it something that I projected? Is it something that, I saw within my own mind? If anybody else was with me, would they have seen it? I mean, there's just so many questions.
Sure.
It's so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that I've come to the fact that there's elementals out there just through research for so many years. Whenever you come out to the end of the day and say people are definitely seeing something, but we have no photographs and we have no, bones or bodies or anything like that. And then people start talking about shape shifting and all this stuff going on. And sometimes they're even accompanied by strange lights. And I thought, well, if we would look back into history, the only other anomaly that's ever associated with these kind of events deals with the fairies. So ever since that time, I've been a believer in fairies. By the way, I did write a book called On Fairies, which is an exhaustive case study of fairies since the very beginning of human history up into the current period of time. But yeah, I'm just utterly fascinated by them. The idea, like you said, that they can take different forms and take different shapes. One of the ideas of glamour, which is a term used in fairy vernacular, which means that they can allow you to appear something different than they actually are. And that's where we get our word glamour from today regarding makeup, because they're able to disguise themselves.
Right.
We talked earlier about, now we all know the forest is alive. You got Mother Nature, you got the grass, the trees, the wildlife. We've got everything's associated, the elementals.
Right.
So I came up with this belief, this theory, perhaps, that not only is the forest alive, but I look at the forest today a little differently than I did maybe 5 years ago. We've got all this life bred into our national parks and forests.
Mhm.
And we have the trees. I mean, we've got 100-foot trees. We know their vines. They go for miles. They're endless. And I think it's like a connected like an internet board where all these beings get together and they can communicate with each other.
Mhm.
And I think that trees are a life force. I also think they can serve as a portal for a lot of these things coming in and out of. Like we always hear about the Bigfoot just appearing, right? Out of
Mhm.
nowhere, out of perhaps a portal, or the dog man, even more so. What's your thoughts on that theory about? I think that it's all like a kind of like the internet, and I think that trees are one of our main sources for which a lot of these phenomena travel.
Ron, why don't you take that first? I want to I want
Okay.
to think about that.
Yeah. Well, something like that happened to me whenever I was looking for a dog man, right? So this is going back about 19 years ago, and there was a dog man report in this particular area. So another investigator and I went out to see if we could track something down. And we were a very forested area, and all around us it appears that something like static electricity starts happening all around us. And we thought, well, we better get out of this area. So we turn around to leave, and there a ball of light just emanates, right? It doesn't cast any light or anything like that. It just kind of interior glows, it sparkles on, and then it goes out. And we didn't know what to do, but that was the only way to get out of where we were, and our cars were parked that way. So we went, and when we got to the point where the light had come on, off to our right-hand side, we hear something following us in the woods. So, whether that was a portal or whether that was a tear between two different worlds or whatever the case may be, I am convinced that without that light coming on, that was the vehicle by which something else entered into our world. But the idea of trees being able to communicate with each other, that is proven. That is absolutely proven that these kind of things do indeed happen. There is communication out there with trees and fungus and everything else. So this is one of my theories as well, too. The idea of the Gaia theory, that the world itself is alive, it's a living sentient organism, right? If the earth is our mother, then how come the elementals could not be her children then? And I'm not in such a grand new age type of term, but the idea that these elementals are actually offsprings or manifestations of the earth itself. So, and then Bigfoot and all these other kind of things could be those, the life force of that as well too. Whenever you look at sacred sites, especially if you look at them in relation to ley lines, oftentimes there's ghosts attached to them, unexplained phenomenon, earth lights, and all this other kind of stuff. And of course, like you had said, Krista, earlier on, C.S. Lewis, who wrote the Chronicles of Narnia, he stayed at a house that was supposed to be haunted by ghosts and also had fairy activity. And he said the fairies were far worse than the ghosts. So the idea that these two worlds, the world of the dead and the world of the fae, are interlocked is ancient, right? A lot of people have talked about going into the fairyland, and there they've seen their deceased loved ones as well. So it's almost as if the other world, whether you call it heaven or nirvana or whatever words you want to put to it, this other side where this living soul of ours continues, right? That also seems to be a place where the elements combine as well too. So it's very possible that when we die, we return to the very heartbeat of the universe itself, where everything.
Really quickly before Ann jumps in, you said the fae. Is the fae something paranormal? Is that also another term for fairy?
Yeah, fairy. Yes, that's right. So fairy is an interesting term because the word fae is representative like a group, and it can be interchanged with fairy. But whenever you look at the derivation of the word fairy basically means something that lives in the world of the fae. So it's kind of like a circular type of introduction because it's an ancient word. It probably comes from the Old French, but really it has no meaning other than saying it belongs to. It denotes something that belongs to a world that's different than ours.
Okay.
It's interesting because I had an experience once, and I was out camping with somebody, and we were looking at this tree. And I didn't say anything at first, but it caught his attention, and he had motioned over to it, and I was already looking at it, and we saw, and it was strange. It was like there was this bear face that began to manifest on the tree, and then from there it ended up looking like it transformed into this like Sasquatch face, and I was frozen. I was really nervous, and so we got out of the vehicle and we went up to the tree, and it was just, there was nothing there. It was just the normal bark and everything. And we tried to step back and relook at it, different angles, different lighting. And it was never what we had seen. And, you know, I don't know about trees being portals, but I think that, you know, because I remember being a child. I mean, I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. I was out there in the Tillamook Forest, and there was just some of these trees that it was like, oh, this is a grandfather tree, and it holds so much wisdom. And so I guess I always looked at trees as being their own entities individually.
Boy, you know, I have to interject something here because I was talking. There's gonna be a story I'm gonna be putting out later, probably this month. And my fascination with trees has just started like 8 months ago. It's because of this story I got, and it's kind of, this resonates with me because there was this man in his late 20s camping, hunting in an area where he knows it like the back of his hand. And it was nighttime. He spent 2 or 3 days out there. Well, first thing that's weird about this story, I'm not going to get into the whole story. Then one of the following mornings when he woke up, his surroundings were unfamiliar. He knew that he was in an area where he didn't set camp. Everything was different. That freaked him out. So he's trying to figure out now where he's at. And so he says he got this feeling that he was lost, and he started to get worried for his own survival. And the reason I bring up about the trees earlier, and Anne, what you just spoke on, just popped. He said that as he walked through a tree, all of a sudden he's seen a tree and a face kind of appeared in a tree. He didn't see the face appear. He did not see the face appear, but as he was looking through, he would see these like almost humanoid looking faces. And then he'd get closer, they'd fade away. Then he'd look and find another face. Another face would kind of be sitting there 20 yards away. Another. Then he realized that these faces, and they're all different shapes and forms. He realized then, instead, something clicked in his head. Something told him in his head to follow the face of the tree, and you will find your original campsite. And sure enough, it made him back to his original campsite, and he now knew where he was.
Interesting.
Wow, that's powerful. You know, and to build off of that as well, if I may, I had an experience. It was really strange. I was out camping, and this was in Eastern Oregon, so more of your, you know, high desert side. And I was sitting there, and my friend and I, we thought we heard these footsteps around the tent, and we had gotten really nervous, and I ended up bolting. She followed behind me, and I ran to the women's restroom. And so we had run in there, and I could hear those same footsteps walking in the gravel, just back and forth outside the door. Well, finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I didn't know what was following us or anything like that. So I decided, you know, I told her, go get in a stall, you know, I'm going to open the door. I ripped open the door, and I'm just like, what? And there was nobody there. All I could see was trees. That was it. Just a bunch of trees. Well, everything was really quiet, and we decided, okay, well, we'll just slowly walk back to our tent, and we're just going to try and, you know. And so we went back to the tent. We fell asleep. It was the next morning that we woke up, and it was time to go brush our hair and brush our teeth and all this kind of stuff. And I walked to the bathroom, and I realized that it's a gravel parking lot. There were no trees. There was no trees.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's something definitely with the trees, you know, because some people in chat have heard me tell this story. My friend, she was deer hunting in a deer stand, and she watched the creatures, as she called them, she didn't know what they were at the time, come out of a tree on 4 legs and get up and walk away on 2 legs. There was 5 of them. And she said, there's no way like all of these could have been like, the tree wasn't hollow or, you know, anything like that. And so later we come to the conclusion, because I was like, well, could it have been this? And I was showing her pictures of different types of creatures, and come to find out it was puckwudgies.
Mhm.
So it's like, the trees played a big part in that, because she said there's no way all those creatures came out of that tree, but she watched them come out of that tree. So
Right.
go figure.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The puckwudgie is one of my favorite, all-time favorite type of cryptids, elemental, whatever you want to call it. It originates in the Wampanoag legends up around the Massachusetts area, right? So these are things from the Bridgewater Triangle, and it's just one of my simply one of my favorite things, because the word puckwudgie, if you look at the very beginning of the root, the word puck, which is also the name of elementals over in England as well. So is it possible that we have this kind of bleed over in this kind of universal truth that these things actually do exist in different spaces and different places? Because, this was something that was in their folklore well before humans stepped foot on North America.
Right.
Mhm.
I don't know. It's just, I think the trees are fascinating. And Rob, you had a weird encounter with a stick. Literally a stick.
Yeah, I did. I'll tell it. Take 5 seconds. So, Ron and Ann, listen to this one. I'm at an area they call Dead Man's Creek for various reasons. Somebody literally got killed there. I'm not getting into that, allegedly it's haunted. But yeah, so I was out there with my friends. This is however long ago it was, and it's a meadow, a big meadow, and the creek runs through here. On either side of the creek, there are a tree line on both sides. Maybe they're 50 yards deep on either side. And that's how it runs. It runs for like 7 miles. In fact, it's around where I live, actually. So we're walking through the meadow, Ron, and everyone listening. And all of a sudden, I see this stick pops up. It pops up about 3 feet tall, 3 feet. Think nothing of it, because it's the summertime. Dry limbs have a tendency to pop up out of the ground. And this thing was maybe an inch in diameter. I'm maybe 40, 50 feet away. And I'm looking at the stick again, no big deal. But then you know what? As I'm looking at the stick, I'm looking past it to something else. And this stick, as I said, is about 3 feet tall, popping out of the ground. All of a sudden, it rose up maybe another foot, and it had these spindly legs and kind of like these little arms popped up down the side, and it ran. It literally ran down to the creek. About 20 feet, ran right, and I started chasing after the stick. I'm a big tough guy. It's only a stick. It wasn't Bigfoot, right? So I'm like, what is this? Me and my buddy are chasing after this thing, running across the meadow down to the creek, and I'm like, this is unreal. What is this? Jumps into the creek, makes it to the creek. As soon as it hits the creek, turns back into a natural stick and kind of floated down the creek. Is that an elemental? What is that?
Wow.
Yeah. I think it could be an elemental. Of course, I think it could be, because it was something of the natural world that came alive, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it obviously wanted to appear like a stick for whatever reason. Do you think that was its true nature, or do you think it was a camouflage technique?
Camouflage technique, probably, perhaps. I thought it was a stick. I don't know why it decided to move and run.
Right.
Because
they thought you were on it.
If you're in camouflage, and I really, really wasn't. But again, yeah, that's something I've seen. I've seen a lot of weird things, Ron. Yeah.
I apparently, yeah. Well, whenever you said about this stick rising up out of the ground about 3 or 4 feet, I just assumed that the woods was happy to see you.
Thank you, Ron.
That was funny.
Well, thank you.
That was funny. So, again, there's so many things I want to discuss. I want to talk something here that's a little more scary and creepy. We're talking about the elementals. Again, it's with Mother Nature. Nothing we should really be afraid of. And fairies, I'm assuming they're nothing nefarious. But you hear about the Jinn, right? People now when I'm talking about the Jinn, these are things that can cast spells on you. They are something that's out to get you, correct? Or at least to cause harm to you, right? Or is it something if you leave it alone? Or what is it? I guess we start with the definition, Ron.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anne, you want to take this?
Honestly, it's one of those things where I haven't researched a lot of it. My current understanding is that it was a spirit that was neither good nor evil. That's one thing I've heard. And then the other thing that I've heard is it was like a genie that was not good.
Yeah, so you could say I've written quite a few books about the paranormal, and I've mentioned the Jinn in probably 5 of my books because they have such a crossover with ghosts and vampires and fairies. The Jinn, if you look at Islamic belief systems, they were created from smokeless fire. So immediately you see that they are created from an element, so they could fall into the realm of the elemental. But you also have to understand that the fire from which it comes from could also be associated with like hellfire as well too, right? But probably not to that degree. So they're not necessarily demons, but they're not necessarily good either. So if we would look at the hierarchy, we have the angels, right? And then you would have the Jinn, which would be down a little bit lower. And Jinn are able to possess people. So sometimes they appear like a demonic. They've been known to reanimate newly dead corpses. So you have that zombie and vampiric type of thing because sometimes they would even feed off of people in that form. There was people that were professional exorcisers of the Jinn back in the ancient world, and you can find in museums around the world all these great prayers that you would put up in your home, hoping that the Jinn would not find their way in. So they could be dangerous, and of course, like Anne said, that's where we get the word genie from as well. It comes from the word Jinn, but it's something that I definitely would not want to mess with in any way because it's so similar to what the Judeo-Christian idea of the demon is that I think that association is just too much to ignore.
It's not like the mythology, like you see, I Dream of Genie, where if I found a bottle in the river and I, rubbed it and it broke, all of a sudden a spell is cast upon me. Bad luck ensues.
Yeah. Not so much, but I think what happens in the morality tale of the genie granting wishes, it's always, there's always something wrong, right? The moral of the story is that you might get what you want, now, but in the long run, it's going to hurt you or somehow impede your progress, right? So there's a double-edged sword there to be granted temporal wishes, and then your spiritual wishes are gone or destroyed or whatever, no, so the Jinn doesn't become an attractive female until people start going into the Middle East and appropriating their culture.
Right.
Yeah, like everything else. I mean, that's just what happens. But people still make movies about the Jinn. The Jinn are, if you watch any kind of programs that originate from the Middle East region, or even some cases around India as well, it's not ghosts that they're looking for; it is Jinn that they're looking for. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of knew that. I just want to throw that out there because, again, to me, it's not, from the movies, or Aladdin's magic bottle, anything like
Right.
that, And, we're talking about elementals. We've talked about fairies and all these elements. How I think the forest is just this highway of information, of life forces. If at all, Ron, what do you think? How does that connect it to cryptids, Bigfoot, and Dogman? Do you think there's a connection? Do you think they work together, or stay away from each other, if at all, if anything?
Well, yeah, I think that definitely they work together. I really think that when we talk about Bigfoot and Dogman and really any kind of cryptid that you want to mention, and even ghosts and things, they're an integral part of that fabric of creation. Not to get too new agey or anything like that, but I think that there's energies out there that we can probably understand that are out there, and even like the brain is just one big, colossal energy storm going on in our head. So all this energy is out there, and energy also has frequency. And I think that what is going on is there is this continual harmony within the natural world. And every now and then we are plugged into that under certain circumstances, usually by mischance. and then we get to see a little bit of what's going on in that hidden world, and that's where our monsters come from. And they're only monsters because we don't understand them, or they're monsters because that's the way we perceive them.
Right.
But I do believe that all these things out there, especially Bigfoot, whenever we look at First Nations or Native American lore, they're spiritual beings, first and
Yes.
foremost. In the Pacific Northwest, they act as conveyors of souls of the dead into the afterlife. And if we look at in Tibet and in the Himalaya area, the Yeti is definitely far more spiritual than it is a physical animal. So to think that we are now, again, we talked about appropriation with the Jinn. Think of this, 300 years of appropriation of Native American folklore, and we took something that was nearly deified by the First Nations people, and now we made it into some sort of quasi creature that stalks the night and preys upon beautiful young girls in our movies and stuff. And that's kind of sad to think that we went that far, because the true nature of these creatures has been lost because it's not important to us, right? In a Judeo-Christian culture, the last thing you want to talk about is the possibility of something that's able to, some sort of communion with the natural world and a being such as Bigfoot or something like that. Yeah.
Well, we've went to fear so much.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, yeah. Well, what Ann said, though, and you guys had talked about with the trees and everything like that too. I mean, we understand we have a term called like a tree hugger, right? We've heard these terms going about, but I think that whenever you go into history, we see that there's always been sacred groves, right? The Druids would honor the oak groves that would have certain types of plants or flowers associated with, like mistletoe. In the Greek world, you had the great oak grove of Bandana, which were the priests could hear the whispering of the gods in the leaves. So we have stepped away from that kind of stuff. We've stepped away that the natural world can somehow preach to us, right? And even St. Francis of Assisi believed that the natural world, you could hear God's words in the natural world as well too. But we've left all that kind of stuff behind because the natural world is now a commodity, right? It's something that we can exploit and we can use. And whenever we look at the world in that particular way, it will always lose its importance to us. It always will. I mean, there's still people out there that consider. I think the trees are very important, because I don't think, whenever Ann talked about like the great forgetting in the human mind, I think that we've had that, but the forest hasn't. Oh, yeah. The forest still remembers the way things were.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Oh, beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're right. The forest remembers way, way back, centuries upon centuries.
That's right.
And,
That's right. Yeah. So humans are supposed to have a genetic memory. A lot of people have talked about this before. That we can remember. Generations before us. Think about what the forest has. I mean, if we do, as human beings, have a genetic memory, imagine what a tree has stored within it. I mean, it could think back to the very beginning of creation itself. We might have that kind of knowledge, or at least that kind of remembering still in the trees out there, in our very backyard. Yeah, water, absolutely. Again, what are we talking about? We're talking about the elements again, right? We're always going back to the elements because the world is formed. The elements have been here since longer than we have, right? We're formed from the elements, but the elements is what makes up creation. It's from the elements that we draw all the things necessary to produce people like us.
Really quickly, I got to take like a 10-minute pause, but I'm not going to pause. This is for our
10-second.
podcast. 10-second pause.
You said minutes.
Oh, no. Heaven, no, not 10 minutes.
No.
I'm not going to have dead air. I'm going to talk. I'm going to take this time out to thank Maggie, DJ Tyler Radio, Pancho Zorch, DJ Tyler Radio again, War Criminal, and Ania for your awesome super chats and super stickers. Great way to support what we do around here. Please subscribe to the Blondes Boost podcast on YouTube. Bigfoot Mr. Rob, if you're new. And, of course, Texas Front Porch. And, of course, at the end of the show, Ron, I'm going to need your links because I want people to follow you. And, of course, the lovely Anne. So I had to get that in there, and we will just continue on with the awesome show. Ronald Murphy and Anne Selene. And I got to get out of this. Okay. So I'm sure I threw off your train of thought with that, Ron. I didn't get a chance to tell you that earlier.
No, that's okay. My train's always going down the track. It jumps off every now and then, but we're still going.
Well, you hit me with a good one a little bit earlier. Yes, with the with the stick and all. And I got a question for you and Ron. I'm sure you have an idea on this. Do you think we have the ability to manifest these things? Like if I'm going in the woods and I want to look for Bigfoot, and I think about Bigfoot, well, I'm not going to find. I don't believe I'm going to find them. I think it's about what Krista says: your thought, your intentions. But however, if we dwell too much on something, a topic, because I know that I can do it. Do you believe in the practice of manifestation?
So I definitely believe in the practice of manifestation. There hasn't been one thing that I haven't put my mind to that I didn't achieve. For a long time, I didn't believe that I would. I never thought I would be here. If you were to talk to me pre-2018, I mean, it's amazing that I've flown so many places, that I've ended up in Ireland and everything, and even with the experiences that I've had, okay, with these different beings, it's hard because on one hand, do I think that you can open yourself up and connect energetically on that same wavelength and maybe call it to you? Yes. But then on the other hand, is it your path? Is that what you're supposed to see? So maybe not, instead of a dog man, maybe you see a Bigfoot instead. Maybe that, whatever that does to you energetically and spiritually and whatever, maybe that was the path, and you're not supposed to see the dog man either ever or maybe later. So I think that it's kind of a mixed bag there.
Well, let me ask you this. Why do you think some people that have been looking for these cryptids for 20 and 30 years that are dedicated, have all the right intentions, and they are in the forest like a job, 40 hours, 50 hours a week. Why do you think some of these guys or ladies have never seen anything other than a track or a broken stick or some other menial evidence?
I think that comes from within. What kind of work have they done with themselves? What, are they, because, okay, so let's say you have somebody who they are, okay, Bigfoot is flesh and blood. They're apers, they're scientific, and they want the hard evidence and they're looking at it through that sort of lens. Well, maybe they're not going to find it because they're not open to everything involved. I mean, there could be a bit of a door or wall that exists within that realm, because then I don't know. For me, when I went out in the woods, I wasn't trying to look for Bigfoot. I was trying to do ghost hunting stuff, and this, it was a totally different experience. And so I think it comes down to how open are you? And are you honest with yourself that you really want to have that experience? Because you can say that you want to all day long and you can talk about it with other people, but is that what you really truly feel inside?
Right. That's a good answer, Anne.
Oh, thank you.
I like the answer. I like Lady Anne.
I do too.
She's very eloquent. Yes, she's very eloquent.
Aw. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Ron, what's your thoughts?
I personally think that what we're looking for, Bigfoot and all these kind of things, are energetic, right? So I don't think that we're actually looking for, or we should be looking for, something that's flesh and blood. Although I think that they can manifest in a form of something that appears to be flesh and blood. But I truly believe that this is all about frequencies, and I truly believe that as well that they are able to project into our minds a form that they want us to see, and somehow that form is now translated by our mind into these archetypal figures of werewolves and Bigfoot and maybe even some regards aliens and ghosts. You like that too, Krista? You think that that's a plausible theory as well too?
Absolutely.
I love that.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So Yeah, all these people that are out there, I do believe it's completely about intent.
Mhm.
And so I spent some time with Lauren Coleman a few years ago, and he said that he believes that the only way that a physical proof of a Bigfoot will ever be discovered is by a team led by women, because they go out there with a completely different frequency than men, because men go out there very confrontational. They go out there with a lot of machismo. It's about killing things or getting proof. And women are just out there for the experience more than anything. And I hope that does come one day, that because in this field, this is both you and Ann know this. This film is not very open to women. It's a really kind of a guys club, right? A lot of patting on the back and stuff like that. But there are so many women out there doing such great research and even writing on it. The Cryptid Huntress is one of them right there as well too. So there's people out there that are often overlooked simply because of their sex, and that should not happen. And I'm glad that we're on here, Raw, right now with two beautiful young women.
I am. Oh gosh, I am too. I am too. And and Ron, I asked Lady Anne last 2 weeks ago to come on my show, and she said, "Rob, absolutely not." So I had to manifest her appearance today.
That's right. Yeah,
I did not.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
I've been trying to manifest two 25-year-old redheads for about the last 10 years now, and it's still not working. So I'll let you know what happens with that.
I've seen your post.
It's not your path, dear.
I've seen your post, Ron. I've seen your post on Facebook. That's the wrong social media platform for that. But I got to tell you, you bring up about women, right? And of course, I love women. I love women researchers, and Ann was bringing up something, because I think that some of these cryptids, they find women to be nurturing, but I have something that's kind of a little creepy, a little haunting. I was talking to some people, and they had a group of a couple guys and a couple women, and every time the women are with this group, they hear the crying of babies in the forest, crying of babies, but never when it's just the men, only when the women are with them. So I'm getting to thinking,
that makes sense.
Is it a cryptid, or is it something that's something different, something that has ill will? I find that to be really creepy, to be honest with you.
I do too. It's pretty disturbing, really.
I mean, it's hard. I mean, who knows what it is, but it definitely has the intelligence to be able to, know that we instinctively we're gonna run to that. That's gonna activate something within us and lure us out there. I mean,
Sure.
There are stories of something like that, though. I can't remember. I remember hearing some scary stories about a woman being in her house and hearing a baby cry outside, which kind of went hand in hand with hearing whistling outside, and you're not supposed to whistle back. And it all was very, very scary, stories for sure. It kind of fell in the line of like Native American lore and
Small Town Monsters just put out something, their Alaskan series with Alex Petikoff, and where they were up there at, other women had come and they had heard the crying baby, which, really, I mean, that's pretty creepy to me, just because, like, are they trying to lure women away, or, what are the motives? What's the mindset of these things?
Right.
Yeah, you'd have to just pay attention to your intuition. If the crying, because I mean, we know what the crying. I mean, I remember when my babies were small, and I could kind of feel what the crying was. Was it attention? Were they hungry? Kind of a thing. And to hear a cry out in the woods, and especially if your intuition is telling you that that's not right, it's not normal, then obviously, it would be ill intent.
Yeah, and that makes you, like, we as women, we hear a crying baby, we're going to go to it. And they say, no, you don't want to do that. But how hard, for me, that would be hard not to.
Yeah. And really quickly, too, my pal Jessica's in the chat here today, and she says, I'm in the woods all the time with my kid. The cryptids are interested in high vibrational humans, especially kids and psychic people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was definitely something when I was going to healing group, and they were talking about as your vibration raises, as your light becomes brighter, then these things, they don't want your light to be bright, so they're wanting to, douse that out. They don't like that.
Mm. So let me ask you this question as well too. Um, in all cultures around the world, when we're dealing with hominids of some kind, whether it be the puckwudgie or the yeti, throughout the United States, Pacific Northwest, the idea that these creatures will abduct women, right? You know, you have this term mountain brides, right? You've heard that term before, where women are lost and it's assumed that they are made, the consort of one of these creatures. Do you think that happens? Do you think that physically happens? Or when we're talking about people that go missing, is that the same way you could talk about an alien abduction or a fairy abduction? What do you think is going on within that particular kind of mythos regarding these creatures abducting women? And if they do, for what purposes?
That's really difficult to answer because, so I was in search and rescue. And I remember going on multiple cases, and there was one, my last one, that I went on, and we were out there for days. And I remember going to the PLS, which is the point last seen. And I mean, his tent was there, and all of his stuff was there. And I was with an officer, and we stood there, and I remember hearing voices in the woods, but it didn't make sense because we didn't have anybody there. There was nobody. They were in a different section. And so I was going between being with the officer and going to the PLS, and then being back at base camp and plotting the different stuff that we'd find. And there was just this feeling. And, I was 17 at the time, and he was a lot older. And I just remember the look on his face when he was like, "Get in the car. We need to leave." And it was just really, I don't know, unnerving. And we get back to base camp, and we had to call the wife in. There was just nothing, and we had to call it off. And we never since then, but so to go through something like that, whether it's your partner, whether you're a person on the team, your mind tries to find why did it happen? And it was weird because there was no trace. I'm telling you, there was no trace. It made no sense. I mean, we had been out on searches, and it was literally like he was just plucked out of thin air. And I don't know, but people can go missing. And so I think that some of the mythos and stuff like that is our human mind trying to make sense of something that's so
right there,
sad and confusing.
For sure.
And the natural world is unpredictable, isn't it? I mean, that's one of the things that we as human beings haven't been able to completely control. We can dam up our water, we can control nature to some point, but at the end of the day, we are still at its mercy, right? And that's one of the things that frightens us. And I think that because it frightens us, that's why we have all of our monsters living in the woods as well, too, because that's where everything kind of neatly belongs. And if we're okay, we're in our house, everything's good, we have electricity and everything like that, everything is good here. But whenever you step out into the other, that's where bad things happen.
I've often thought, and again, not just with women, and really not with women, with people in general, right? I think, again, we made mention, I talked about the babies crying is typically when I find it's been women researching, or with men, but men never, right? Then we talk about missing 401. Again, it's another topic, but it's something to point out, though. Do you guys think, and we're talking about vibration, we're talking about your beliefs, your intentions. And for me, you guys, with the 411, it can be the human element, the cryptid element, a dummy a guy that should not has no reason to be in the woods, and it could be alien element. It could be all. There's 10 factors in my head. It's not one thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe, in not all cases, let me rephrase the question. Do you think, since we're talking about frequencies, vibrations, intentions, do you think people that are maybe a little weak-minded or not strong are more subject to being taken? And that could be even by a serial killer as much as it could be a dog man, correct?
Good question.
Like a gullibility factor.
Yeah, and maybe just, I guess that'd be the better way to say it.
Yeah.
Politically
I know.
correct.
Right. So I know that I have no place out in the woods, right? I mean, I've been camping several times, but I know that there is no way that I could ever venture into some sort of backcountry and make it out alive if I was by myself. I'm just being totally honest. There's no way that would happen because that's just not my expertise right there. But a lot of people do. Like a lot of people say, I'm going to hike the Appalachian Trail, right? And then they go missing. And then, that's probably what happened, right?
It's probably one of the number one places to become a
it is.
problem.
That's right. And then also, if you were a serial killer, you have a constant stream of victims coming up at all time, right? One of the things that Ann and I have written about a lot of the times is that we don't like to believe that humans are capable of very heinous things, right? So we try to pretend that it's a monster because we don't want to think that our neighbor could do this or our brother could do it or somebody that we know could do it. But consistently throughout history, some of the worst things that are done to other people, at the end of the day, it's a Scooby-Doo cartoon. We remove that mask of the monster that they were wearing and underneath is a human being, because human beings can be very, very nasty creatures. And, those are probably the most scary monsters. I would much rather be in the woods if there was a Bigfoot around than in the woods with somebody that I don't trust.
Oh, yeah. Nope. And even on like the show Unsolved Mysteries, I could watch the paranormal ones all day long, but the stuff when it came to other people, that's the real monster. It's awful.
That's right. Yeah, I think there's so many layers to this paranormal onion and so many rabbit holes that go down, but we always have to take into account the human influence behind anything, right? We have to consider that what is the human element, or what is the human involvement within this particular conundrum. And I think that once we get through that, when we start understanding the psychology of what's going on here, then we can get closer to the paranormal, if that indeed is still needed to be solved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It's true. It's if we can, because we manifest our reality. I really truly believe that. And we project things and, we interact with different stuff depending on where we're at. Like that. Another thing that we talked about a lot is shadow work and how important it is that we face ourselves. I mean, when we face ourselves and we face our demons, it's no longer scary. This is a huge opportunity that when we heal ourselves, I feel like it has that domino effect and it really heals the world. I mean, just the other day, I let somebody in front of me, and when driving home, and I watched him stop, and he let a truck and trailer get in front of him when there was a total line of cars, but I got to actually see that domino effect, right? And if we can face ourselves and do the work, then I think that, it would have a profound effect. And then, we would also be able to come together, I think, more in the community, because the community, I think, is a bit broken, where you have people that are in this camp and this camp and this camp, and they don't want to cross-pollinate. They don't want to come together, but it's important. We have to. I really believe at this point we have to, or the field is not going to continue.
Or the other problem is the people jockeying for position as well too. People trying to use you as a stepping stone to get to where they want to be, because they apparently think that when you get to a certain status here, it's all fame and fortune and everything like that. So there is, this field is indeed very much broken, and but as many times as I've wanted to leave, because I've wanted to leave a few times, people who I thought were very dear friends turn out to be, people that I didn't think that they were. But I got to meet people like Ann and people like Dave Scott and people like you guys that convinces me that there are legitimate people out there looking for the same answers that I am. Right? And I think that that's really what keeps me going, this open-mindedness. Because I've been to conference before, guys, where it was just about, we're looking for an ape out there, right? I've been to these conferences where you have 5 speakers and everybody talks about the same thing. It's monotonous, and we're just doing lip service. Nobody is getting to the bottom of anything. They're talking about a litany of encounters, and this happened and that happened. And I think that we need, especially at this point of time in paranormal research, is really kind of start weeding through all this kind of stuff and digging deep and really getting at the heart of what lies under all of these kind of mysteries and questions.
There's a lot of people that have agendas not even related to this field because they just want to put a sham on this whole topic, right?
Yep.
And I remember, and again, and Ann said a great thing. To me, you have to be open-minded to everything because I believe in just about everything and anything. Text always gives me crap. Tell Rob your story; he'll believe anything. But I do to an extent because I've never walked in anyone's shoes, and I want answers, and I like to help others with their problems. Right? That's what I do. But I got to tell you, so a guy that I dearly respect, and Chris knows what I'm going to say because whenever we talk about this subject, I always bring up Ron Moorhead. Ron Moorhead has been on. I love the guy. I read his book, Quantum
Me too.
Bigfoot.
He's awesome.
He's been on several times on the show, and when I first met Ron via internet, it was like we were talking. He goes, Ron, about 30 years ago, if you would have came to me and told me the things you're telling me about Bigfoot and the paranormal and cloaking and portals, I'd have said, young man, turn around and go home. Because 30 years ago, Ron Moorhead was just a pure aper. Okay, pure. I mean, he told me he had blinders on to that one subject. And then he told, now, Rob, here's where I've matured and opened my eyes. Now he thinks that the quantum physics, right? It's anything and everything. It could be alien. It could be metaphysical. It can travel just like that. It can go 5 miles in 5 seconds. And he's telling me these things. He goes, yeah, I'm kind of on the woo side.
Sure.
However, kind of like me, he also thinks there are flesh and blood creatures also out there. Because I happen to be in that camp where there's flesh and blood, but there's also that other element that none of us know. None of us know. Right. And whether you want to call it supernatural, the woo, whatever, metaphysical, I don't care what term you use. But it's not just one thing. And that's not just with cryptids. That's with all walks of life and anything that you elect to do or study.
Yep, preach on, my friend. That's exactly
I agree.
right.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's it. I mean, and that's something that I'm wanting to dive into as well, which Ron knows that, with the whole quantum mechanics and quantum physics and how, how does manifestation work and how does it, how do we project these things and how, I mean, it's incredible.
So Emma's book is done. Then she calls me up about a week ago. Ron, I think I'm going to look at this from a different angle. Remember, now the book is written and done. I think I'm going to look at this from a different angle. Give me about 3 more months to go through this. So she is going down the rabbit hole now about the quantum physics and all this kind of stuff.
Oh,
she's doing an excellent job on it. She really is doing an excellent job. But yeah, I think that whenever this book does come out, now remember, we're writing a book now about the psychology behind werewolf legends. Okay,
let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, but I think whenever that comes out, I think
it's kind of taking on a whole new life now, though. Like there's these like different books and stuff that I've come across, and I mean, like one of them is this beautiful book right here. It's called Remarkable Creatures: Epic Adventures in the Search for the Origin of Species. This thing has had me so captivated, and it's talked about like Darwin and Wallace and Humboldt and the way that they're going about searching for these things and the experiences that they're having. And I mean, granted, life was so different back then than it is for us now, but I don't know. It's hard. If anybody just read it, but it really is making things take on a whole new light with this book. I think that it's deeper than what we originally set out to do.
No, I agree. And she's doing remarkable work on it as well too. And I really do enjoy having her as a writing partner. But just don't write a book with her if you want to get it out soon. That's the whole thing. Is I'm saying, yeah.
I'll put that. Okay. You mentioned werewolves, and I got to tell you, one of my favorite subjects is werewolves.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to pose this for you guys. Werewolf, shapeshifter, mythical, doesn't exist, a dog man, werewolf. I know I will tell you before you guys give the answer. I believe that there are elements that are true with all folklore. These stories came from somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And throughout time, maybe they did get exaggerated a little bit. Maybe a little yarn was spun onto it. But I think at the base core of all mythology, or folklore, I should say, really, there's an element of truth where it started, right? And then it kind of expanded into different elements. With the werewolf, what's your take on that, Ron? And then Anne, you go next.
Like reading, again, it's all about, because this stuff wouldn't exist in a vacuum. If this has been around, it's been around forever. And we do know from cave paintings dating, anywhere from 15,000 to 30,000 years ago, we see what looks like a human image on a cave wall transforming into another animal. So the idea that people are able to transform is something that's really embedded within our DNA. Now, I look to see if I can find any corroborating evidence whenever, the historical period comes up. And one of my favorite things about werewolves is that they were very popular in Greco-Roman society. And one Greek travel writer by the name of Pausanias said, there is a place in Greece where they hold a ceremony. And if the children would come there, people would go there, and sometimes people would transform into a wolf. And if they could go 7 years without eating human flesh, they would transform back into a human being. But if they did partake of human flesh, they would always remain a wolf. But Pausanias wrote and said, hey, wait a second, I know somebody that this actually happened to. And the person he named was a famous boxer who actually won Olympic events. And he said, this guy transformed into a wolf. So don't ask me. Go ask this guy. So he was giving evidence and naming, other people that this had happened to. So at least the idea, the notion was in the collective conscience during the Greco-Roman period. And I think, like you had said as well, too, I think that there is so many different myths that are flowing into this one particular stream that it's really going to hard to define what is factual and what is non-factual. All I can tell you is this. In the Greco-Roman world, especially in this one region of Greece called Acadia, strange things were going on there. That's where the king of Acadia, Lycan, was transformed into a wolf by the god Zeus, and that's where we get our name Lycan from, lycanthropy, right? So that is where the ceremony took place as well, too. It was always considered a bit of a backwater in Greece, a bit of a superstitious place. But I think that we can find certain places physically on the map where werewolves and dogmen and dog-headed people were to exist. Herodotus, another writer in the Greek world, he had a map and it showed in places like in Libya and places in India where you could come across the cynocephali, the dog-headed people. Mm-hmm. So this is part of our educational system, at least if you lived in the ancient world. So that was factual. And I'm thinking that this was all drawn from at least some semblance of fact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting because, when you look at ethnosynology, right? The early man with dogs and our entire history of walking beside them. And then all of a sudden, as we end up, first we learn from the wolves and we have that symbiotic relationship. And then we end up creating dogs to do all these different things that we want them to do. And then all of a sudden now we've got the anthropomorphism where now these dogs are acting like people or we're transforming into dogs. And I mean, and then there's the whole side of, you know, the spiritual side of things where people go into the astral realm, and there's talk about shape shifting within the astral realm. And so I think that somewhere along the lines, for me, it's really hard to believe anybody actually physically shape shifting into anything. Whatever, if anybody has seen that happen or had the experience, okay. It's not anything I've experienced. But so I think that the lines became blurred along somewhere. And then to go further, I think that as time went on and the lines became blurred and the stories became more, and our want and our need and our unhealed nature possibly then manifested something into being. And then that's how then it could become the physical, the flesh and blood that people are saying that they're seeing out in the woods, having these experiences with.
Yeah, I like that very much.
I like it too. I like both of them.
Thank you.
Chris, any final thoughts on that before we have to wrap this up?
I think these two guys, both of these people are phenomenal people and a wealth of knowledge, and the show's been awesome.
The shows always blow by when I'm having fun. I was telling Ann backstage, I said, I've done this one show where, man, I could not wait for the show to end. And it rarely happens. You know, I was asking questions like, and there I was getting responses like, yes. Can you please expand on your answer, please? Now that was like, now that was last year. It's nothing current, of course.
Right.
I have a lot of fun. I could go 3 hours and it would go by fast, but I don't like to keep anybody hostage. With that being said, Ron, anything you want to promote, or where can we find you if we want to get a hold of you?
You go to Ronald L. Murphy Jr., Ronald L. Murphy Jr. on Facebook, and that's my author page, and I would list, my books there and everything. You can go to Amazon.com. Again, that's where my books are as well too. And if you're looking for some of my books, like on vampires or on aquatic monsters of the Great Lakes, Walmart now carries them. So if they're not actually being carried,
you're big time now in Walmart.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah, if they don't carry them there physically, you can order them for free and get them right through there to pick them up. And I'm starting to work with Small Town Monsters. They will be publishing my book here probably the next 2 months called Lights from the Mists, which is about my ideas behind earth lights and how that relates to elementals as well too. And they're producing a movie as well that goes along with the book called Phantom Lights that will be in cooperation with my book, and I have been interviewed a couple times for that, and we have about another weekend for filming, and then that will be done. And just some really exciting things coming up. I'm really super excited to have people like Ann and you guys in my corner as well too, because it can be a very lonely trip if you don't have people that you can trust with you.
Absolutely.
Well, you can call me anytime, Ron. In fact, at the end of the show, why don't you send me some links? I'll put it in this video for when it gets published. And Lady Ann, anything you want to say about where can we find you or your book? I know you've got other books out there.
Well, so right now I still have Aperture in the Veil, Born in a Preternatural World. I actually have copies that I can sign for everybody if they want to reach out to me. Best place right now is just go ahead and Facebook me under Anne Selene. So, yeah.
Don't forget to go to KPNL Radio, where this show is being broadcast as well.
Yep.
KPNL Radio.
Thank
KPNL.
You. Yep. Real quick, somebody asked me about the update on my grandson. And she said, can you give an update on your grandson? Just to let everybody know. Thank you for the prayers. They do work. He ended up, went to the emergency room, and they put him on some breathing treatments. And his oxygen actually got down to like 80. And 5 months old with RSV. So, but he is doing better. It's just the cough that's really kicking his rear right now. So, but thank you everybody for the prayers. You guys
prayers for that. I want to thank Maggie, DJ Tyler Radio, Pancho Zorch, DJ Tyler Radio again, War Criminal, and Ania for your awesome support with the super stickers. And I do appreciate that. Helps do what we do around here, and that's greatly appreciated. And I know, Krista, you've got a show Thursday night. Who you have coming on that?
We have on Thursday night, we have Nikki Folsom, and we're actually going to talk some elementals. She's awesome. And She Thursday night. And then we also some of you may or may not know, but Josh Turner co-hosts every Thursday night with us through the month of February. So
Okay, that's
he'll be on as well.
always exciting stuff there. Thursday afternoon for this show, 1:00, I've got Paranormal Paul joins me with Paranormal Amongst Us. So that'll be a cool show. He's I just met him a couple months ago. Great guy, got a great
He's
show.
awesome.
And we'll talk some paranormal encounters with that. And with that being said, I've got a new ending break and an ending to close out the show. I had an old one with text. I've got a new one. It's going to be 30 seconds long. For those of you in chat, just kind of critique it for me and leave a comment on it if you like it. What I love most about this entire ending is the last 3 seconds. Thanks for coming on, you guys.
See y'all.
Thanks.